Money is hard.
but we're here to make it easy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Billionaire. Today we wanted to talk a little about how you can save money by spending more. Now, this isn't a justification of your recent $1,000 purchase of an off-white hoodie or anything you picked up out of Goop magazine. And if you've come here expecting a justification for doing so, then I'm sorry to say you will be disappointed. This video is not advocating for going out and blowing all your money on a BMW or a pair of Gucci loafers or anything like that. The argument that we're making is that you can sometimes save money in the long run by spending a little more now on goods and services that are of a higher quality and that will last you. A lot of people hold a very cheap mindset. Now, the difference between being cheap and being frugal is that frugal people know when it is warranted to spend a little more money on something that's worth it. Those with a cheap mindset want to spend the least amount possible on every single thing, no matter what. And yes, sometimes it is a matter of necessity. If you can't afford a nicer version of anything, you will, of course, opt for the cheap versions.
Today, we're exploring the idea that if you spend a little bit more on the right things, then you could find yourself saving in the long run. Now, as for myself, have you guys ever found yourself just buying the same cheap material, but knowing well if you spend a little bit more, you'd be in a better situation? Like, let me give you an example. Here in Canada, we have some really harsh winters, and buying that Payless boots for $35.99 may sound good. Hey, is Payless still around?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think they went out of business just for exactly this reason.
For this reason, exactly. Now, another example. Buying those Walmart boots might be good if you really can't afford it, but saving a little bit more and buying something that's much more sustainable, let's say Timberlands, although the price point might be a little bit high, Timberlands have a really great customer satisfaction rating, and they do last many winters and harsh weathers. So spending a little bit more on Timberlands might save you from spending $40-50 every couple of months on the Walmart brand. Not to bash Walmart or anything, because I really salute what they're doing for certain communities, but let's think about our money in our pocket for the long term.
And what about knowing when not to opt for the more expensive version of something? This is all about defining needs versus wants. And a need is something that is essential for your survival. This is housing, shelter, food, clothing, electricity, heat. Those are needs, those are essentials. A want is pretty much anything else. A new phone, that's a want. A nice car, that's a want. Ice cream cone, that's a want.
No.
Every single thing is a want. And Mark, you're vegan, you don't eat ice cream anyway. Get out of here. And so this is all about understanding what is a need and what is a want, and then deciding how to allocate your money appropriately. Take shopping for a car, for example. You go into a dealership, and let's say we're going into a Honda dealership. Now, each manufacturer, like Honda, will have a bunch of different models to choose from. They range from your small economy car like the Fit up to a large 7-passenger SUV in the Pilot. Now, here's where needs and wants come into play. If we're talking about a pure need, most people only need a car that will transport them from A to B, commute from the house to work, go from the house to get groceries, etc., etc. You don't need more than that, but you still see so many people driving large pickup trucks, SUVs, things with so much more space, capability, utility than is being utilized. And it's a huge waste of money, but we as people are fantastic at convincing ourselves that we deserve these things. And I want you to take the word deserve out of the equation. No one deserves anything. Ask yourself whether you need these things or whether you merely want them. And if you want them, ask yourself, well, what am I giving up? What is the opportunity cost if I spend the money on what I want versus putting it into a wealth generating investment. And that is the key mindset with which to approach any big situation like this, especially for bigger purchases like a car.
I think it's important that we move forward into more long-term thinking, projecting ourselves 6 months, 1 year, perhaps even 5 years down the line. This might be difficult for some people as finances really act like a thick smog, obscuring the future and really making us present in the ramification of our past decisions. Now, adopting a long term thinking, a long term strategy or mindset when making purchases, especially large one, could really make a difference. Now, taking a step back and just really listen.
Is this something I'll really need? Is this something that I will use for a long time? Do it.
And just like that, by actually going through these thoughts and asking yourself these important questions, you could really change your perspective. And as opposed to seeing your purchases as needless and worthless, they could really change into a perspective of an investment, something with a return, something that actually will benefit you more than it will hurt you.
Now, what about treating yourself? What about going and spending a little extra dollars to buy yourself something nice? Well, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that must be done with discretion. There is oftentimes a incorrect association between price and value. A lot of people think that they're the same thing, but they are not. The price is just an arbitrary number assigned to an item, for a transaction. Value is how much that item is worth to you. So, for example, my watch here, it may have a price of $200, but if I look at it and I look at the materials, I look at the brand, and I say that's something I'm only willing to pay $100 for, the value of this watch to me is $100. And this can be applied in pretty much any different scenario. Let's use designer clothing as an example. Let's say we have a sweater from H&M, a sweater from Ralph Lauren, and a sweater from Louis Vuitton. They're all the same fiber content, same style, same everything. Just the brand's different. You'll see that the H&M one will probably cost you about $30. The Ralph Lauren one, perhaps $80. The Louis Vuitton, probably around $600. You can see the price goes up exponentially. But what about the value curve? Like, how much are each of those things really worth? If I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint, the H&M one, is it worth $30? Probably, but the quality of the fiber used is going to be a lot lower. The stitching isn't going to be as neat. It's not going to be as squared away, and so the garment overall is lower quality. It will not last me very long, and I'll be looking to replace it after 6 months, a year and a half maybe. The Ralph Lauren will have a much higher quality construction. It'll have better stitching, better fiber, and the value increases and corresponds pretty well with the price. When we go beyond that to the Louis Vuitton sweater, well, once you get to a certain level, you won't see the proportional increase in quality that you will from the H&M to the Ralph Lauren, for example. And what you're really paying for is the brand and the marketing. And so the actual value of that Louis Vuitton sweater is much less than the price tag that they put on it. And it's not a bad thing necessarily to have your sights set on some luxury item, some experience, perhaps a trip, an item like a watch, a Rolex, for example. Humans are aspirational creatures, and having a goal, having something to work towards, is a very big motivator and helps us focus our efforts, our goals, and our attention towards achieving something like this. And one thing I want to add as a caveat is that we're talking about treating yourself. And so this is something that should happen after all of your other needs are met. And so I'm talking not about going and spending $10,000 on a Rolex as soon as you have $10,000 in your bank account. No. I'm talking about once your rent or mortgage is paid, once your utilities are paid, once you've put some money in savings, once you put some money in investments, and once all that is done and you have some money left in your account, once that is equal to whatever it is that you want to buy, then you go out and spend it. The habit or the mindset of treating yourself when you haven't taken care of your basic necessities, that is what will get you in financial trouble. And as a quick bonus, what about making things yourself? Many people around the world take great joy and pride in making things by hand. It could be anything. I, for myself, am a very, very amateur leather worker and have made things such as this wallet for myself, as well as a card holder for my girlfriend, and it's a very fun hobby that I enjoy. This isn't going to be taking up shelf space from Hermes or Burberry anytime soon, but the fact that I made this, and for the grand total of maybe $30, including the tools, I had to buy a couple basic tools, and the leather itself, is a much better value than going out and spending a couple $100 on a wallet. But you don't have to make only physical things. You can make digital things as well. And like we've said before in our previous video, having digital skills is so important in this day and age, and it's only going to keep getting more important as time goes on.
And that concludes our video for today.
For a quick recap, we touched on a few points. We talked about a one-time, more expensive purchase versus repeated low-cost purchases. We talked about when you should opt for the cheaper option. We touched on adopting a long-term mindset to financial decisions, as well as treating yourself, spending a little more and getting yourself something nice. And as a bonus, we talked about taking things into your own hands, literally, and making things yourself.
Thank you guys so much for watching our video and staying in touch with us. We would kindly appreciate for you guys to like, subscribe, and share, as well as spark these conversation within your small network. It's always great to see a little bit more money saved in your pocket than being spent on useless purchases.
And so that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.